Where do you upload a podcast? What's the difference between a publisher and a host? Keep listening to find out. You're listening to Practical Podcast Tips. My name's Eric Beals, and today I'm going to cover tip number 19. Where do I upload my podcast? There's a lot of different places to upload a podcast, and sometimes in the beginning it can be a bit overwhelming, and even I kind of forget. I get kind of wrapped up in the podcasting world. It becomes second nature to me. But recently I was seeing some people asking, do I have to start paying for Apple Podcasts? And it made me remember and realize that, oh yeah, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts, that's where people tend to listen. And so I wanted to do an episode talking about this and the differences on like where you listen to podcasts versus where you upload them and whatnot. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the difference between a podcast host and a podcast publisher. And when I'm talking about host, I'm not talking about someone like myself talking, but a host as in where your actual files are hosted. So there's two different things. The most common one that you're going to be familiar with is the publisher. And that's going to be like Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon's doing podcasts, Overcast. There's a lot of different publishers. That is where the consumer listens, but that's not necessarily where you're going to be uploading. Typically, where you're going to upload podcasts goes to what's called the host. Some examples of what a podcast host is. There's a couple names I'll throw out there. There's like Podbean, there's Transistor, there's Red Circle, Anchor.fm. Those are all podcast hosts. In like a single sentence of what that is, it's essentially where your files are stored on the internet, right? So all of the publishers pull from the podcast host. And the advantage of this, and this is definitely the way to go about doing it versus uploading directly, with the exception is if you have like an exclusive deal with a podcast publisher. But if you're just getting started, you're almost certainly not going to have an exclusive deal like that. And so the advantage of doing it straight to a host and then letting the publishers pull from it is you can then publish your files on a lot of different locations. So like people can listen on Spotify podcasts as well as Apple without you having to upload directly to either of those places. Now, one thing to clarify too is a lot of people I was seeing were saying like, do I have to start paying for Apple now? Do I have to pay Apple, like $30-$40 a year to have my files on Apple? The answer is no. So what a lot of people are getting confused on is the Apple Podcasters program, which is a separate thing. I know it's kind of confusing because a lot of Apple naming conventions can be very confusing, but that's different from just being on the Apple Podcasts app. Now, what the Apple Podcasters program is it allows you to have exclusive files on Apple that people can like subscribe and pay you. So pay like a monthly subscription, like, $5, $6 a month to get access to exclusive content only on Apple. And that costs somewhere around like $30, I think, per year or something like that. And then they also take like a commission from that. But that's a paid platform. And the advantage of doing that is it allows people to subscribe to exclusive content within the Apple ecosystem. But that's not required to just have your files on Apple. Okay. I'll save the subscription, the paid stuff for another episode. But I just wanted to address that in this one because I was seeing a lot of confusion recently with people getting confused, thinking that they had to start paying for Apple. The main thing that I wanted to talk about in this is that to remember that you're going to be uploading your files straight to a hosting provider like Transistor and Red Circle and Anchor, that sort of thing, not directly to Apple or Spotify. Those systems will pull the files from your host. Okay. So that's it for this episode. So just wanted to kind of go over that internal flow of what that looks like. So the way that works is you upload to the host, and then the host sends the files to the publishers. And that's it for this episode. I'll see you in the next one. Hey, thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, feel free to leave us a review. I'd love to hear how it helped. Also, if you know somebody else that could benefit from it, go ahead and share it with them. Thanks again, and see you in the next episode.